New Trend Society, the BDX Marketing Podcast with Benjamin Dietering.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of New Trend Society podcast. Have you ever thought about how can I make more with doing less? Sounds pretty cool, huh? I had this thought for a long time now, and a couple months ago I met one guy and he has an inspiring story. He wrote a book. It's called The Hustle Trap, and it basically is a guide and a strategy how to exit the hustle trap of your daily doing, your daily business, where you like just in the wheel going on and going on and going on. And he is an amazing entrepreneur. He did a couple exits. He had a rough life with a lot of ups and downs. And we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about The Hustle Trap, his book. And want to give you maybe a guide or some insights on how you can make your life easier and better. So I'm very happy to have you on the podcast here today, Ryan Crownholm.
Hey, what's up, Benny? Good to be here. Excited to have a chat with you. And thanks for having me on. And hopefully people can learn something from my story. I was, I had a rough go starting off. I wasn't a great high school student. I went in the military, got out of the military, bit of a hard landing, had no other way to really sort of make it except for through entrepreneurship. I was a terrible employee. I only like to do things my way, and so I started my first company, 23 years old, out of the military. It was a hauling junk removal company. And it was really through just hustle. I would do manual labor morning to night. I grew that company eventually into a demolition general engineering company. I opened some recycling centers around the Bay Area. So I did quite a bit, but I did it through brute force. And this is the way that I was taught. My father taught me work ethic. The military taught me work ethic. As long as I could just outwork everybody else, I'd be successful. And that took me to a certain point where I was successful. But I hit a point where, probably a couple million in revenue. And I was just out trying to hustle it beyond that point. And it was like, I just couldn't work hard enough. I couldn't work harder with the guys. And then one fateful morning in 2007, I was out meeting with a guy at a job site. I pulled up in my 1-ton dually crew cab, pulling a 10,000-pound trailer behind me. And I jump on the phone. I'm making a phone call. My guys downloaded.
That was basically, take it slow. Like the guys, we were right in the pot, and this story is gonna change everything in your life, right? There was a day everything changed, and this is so crucial because without that, probably this book won't exist. The whole strategy won't exist, and it changed your life forever, right?
Forever. And
so you were out there on a job site. There was a trailer parked, and you were on the phone.
Yeah. I'm taking a phone call, and back then I used to smoke quite a bit, so I'm smoking a cigarette, and all of a sudden I hear a big crash, and I look up the hill, and I see this truck and tractor rolling down the hill at me. I try to turn out of the way, and my feet tangled up underneath me, and I just crashed onto the ground, and that truck ran me over. And those front wheels hit me. It was low to the ground, so it drugged me underneath it until the truck hit another car, jackknifed in the road, and all of a sudden there was just silence. And
so a 10,000-pound truck ran you over?
No, the trailer was 10,000 pounds. Okay. So the truck was probably another 7,000 or 8,000. It was a 1-ton dually crew cab.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a bad day. And so after the silence, I had one arm that was still working, my right arm, and I pulled myself out from under the truck, and I looked down and I see I'm wearing jeans just like this, except my femur is sticking out of my jeans. And my legs are just kind of in this mangled sort of mess, and my shoulder had been shattered, and I broke my ribs, and the ribs had actually punctured into my lungs, so I was having a hard time breathing. And so here I am laying in the street, and I'm very close to death.
And you had some people around, some coworkers, the clients or so, right?
Yeah, I had employees there, and also my customer was there, and they just froze. They didn't know what to do. It was a pretty gory sight. And so I knew that I was, going into shock, and I had been through combat lifesaver training from being, combat deployed. And so I just started.
That was what you learned in the military back then in Germany, in Kitzing and in Bosnia, where you were deployed?
Yeah. So I just went and started saying, hey guys, we need to call 911 now. Like, I'm going into shock. I'm losing blood very quickly. And so they call 911. We get an ambulance there within a few minutes. And about 15 minutes away, there was a trauma center. They got me into John Muir to the trauma center, and I was in there for 12 hours. And so I come out, and I have tubes and rods, rods in both legs, and tubes coming out of my lungs, and wires. And I mean, it was a mess. And I just sitting in that hospital bed, I thought, my business is done. This is 2007. The housing market was starting to correct. And so it was already kind of on a downswing. And now here I am incapacitated, and I'm in a hospital bed. How can I was the guy who was leading from the front the way I was.
How big was your company back then?
I had probably at the time, maybe 15 employees.
Okay.
About there.
So probably a lot of our listeners can resonate with that. They're in the same position as 50 people. You pay their salaries. You have kind of like a good business, but you're still a lot in it, right? And you're the showmaster kind of?
I was in the hustle trap. And so meaning I was bidding jobs, I was pulling permits, I was operating equipment, I was driving equipment around, I was managing my crews. So I was doing everything, just like a lot of small business people do, right? And so once suddenly I'm not there anymore, who's going to pull the permits? Who's going to bid the jobs? Who's going to make sure the guys are getting stuff done? And
would you say these were all tasks that you thought just you can do them? Or was it like, I don't know, like, I got to take care of it. I know how to do it. The other guys, I don't want to teach them, or it's too tough for them or so. Like,
yeah.
What was your perspective on that?
Well, I wanted to be, so I had people who could do different parts of the job, but the idea was if I was out in the field doing those jobs with the guys, everyone would be more productive because I was present. Because I'm making sure that the things are getting done efficiently
the sergeant
and quickly.
Is there and everybody works better then?
Yeah, right. But you know what happened is a bunch of the guys came into the hospital, and I just said, "Hey guys, we're in a bad place. Like I'm stuck in a hospital bed."
I mean, you were almost dead, right? And
yeah. Well, I had one working arm. And so I was not mobile. The guys just basically said, "We got you. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out." And they did. And so I got a laptop, because this was pretty early, 2007. There wasn't as much technology, but I just started doing what I could do. Like, what can I do? And it was like, so I started looking at different types of business that'll keep us busy. Like, because the economy was crashing, there was lots of foreclosures. I was able to create a new line of services where we were fixing up foreclosed homes. And I was like, guys, if you're willing to go and replace water heater straps and put up smoke detectors and do weed whacking and stuff, I know it's not the best stuff, but I can keep you working. And so I started a new line of the company there. I opened the recycling centers, because at the time electronics recycling had become a big problem. And so I figured out how to get the licensing to open these recycling centers.
That was all when you were in hospital? Well,
this was all over the next 2 years. So the next 2 years I had 6 surgeries of rods, re-rods, bone grafts. It was a time where I wasn't able to be in the field. I could get to my office eventually, but it was hospital bed to wheelchair to a walker to a cane to a limp. I wasn't out swinging sledgehammers anymore. I wasn't out. I just simply couldn't be, and so I had to sort of restructure the way that I thought about business. Meaning, I needed new systems. I needed a way for people to get my permit application plans together, and so I outsourced it, which now is one of my companies. After I sold that company, I took that system that I created and I created a new company, my site plan. And so I had a person, we had to look at what was our competitive advantage within the market. At the time it was dirt. We needed to control the dirt market. So I hired a person who was essentially our internal dirt broker to make sure that any dirt that was running through all the trucking excavator companies in the Bay Area was running through my company. So we could keep it away from our competitors and keep it to us. So we would have our pools would be filled very quickly. We were removing 300 swimming pools a year at the time. And so I took that out and I've separated that out into its own business after I sold the company called Dirt Match now. And so we have an online dirt brokerage. So I started doing all these things that just made the company more and more efficient and to run through systems. And basically at the end of the day, everything would boil down to a metric. I would look at those metrics. As long as everything is in order, then I knew my company was running well. And so at the, this was the accident happened 7 years after I started the company. 7 years after I had the accident, I sold the company at a very nice multiple relative for a construction company, and exited, and I retired for a while. And I went and traveled and I had a lot of fun. Of course, now I'm back into business, but I'm doing it my way. And that's sort of really about what the hustle trap is what those steps were that got me from being a business owner to being, self-employed, being stuck in the hustle trap, doing the daily grind, breaking away from that and learning how to sort of go take that 1,000-foot view of my company from above and like truly run an autonomous organization to free your time up to do whatever you want. I personally like to spend a lot of time with my family, but if you're a workaholic and you're like, no, I just want to grow my business. It's like, if you read The Hustle Trap, it'll teach you how to focus on the things that are most important. So if you want to just free time so you can spend time with your son, do that. But if you want to spend time in your business, focus on things that are going to 10x your business. Nothing. You should have no job, no day-to-day job. And that's really where I try to walk people through.
That's cool. I did a long bike tour and listened to the audiobook. I am like 2/3 through and was really good. And even though I read a lot of business books and I know a lot of their story and all that, was very inspiring to me. So that was one of the major reasons I thought like this is very valuable to our listeners, and that's why I brought you on the pod. Let's maybe you can walk us through. There are like a couple of different parts in the book, and the first one is basically it's like 5 parts, I think, right? And the first one is basically like start with you, and that was a little bit. You already touched the first surface on, like, okay, you're the business owner, you always think you have to do everything, but what is the mindset or like the questions you have to ask yourself when you start with yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of resistance, especially for people who weren't currently entrepreneurs. If you were an employee, sometimes there's a point where in your business maybe where it reaches enough and you're like, well, I don't need a lot more money than this. And it's like, but there's no reason for you not to. So let's push past that and don't feel guilty about making more money. You're empowering people, you're hiring people, you're giving people purpose, create systems that bypass those blocks that you have. So your block might be that, you're not you can, maybe you only like to, once you've done so many sales meetings, you're like, okay, I'm just tired of doing sales meetings. Create a system so that your people will go out and do those sales meetings. There's just, I'll say that every person has their own internal blockage that they need to get past. And so for me, it was like, I am not an overly greedy person. So once my business would hit a certain size, and let's say if I was making, $500,000 a year, I'd be like, okay, I'm good. And I'm just going to sit back and relax.
Because also you don't spend too much, right? Like you have an easy lifestyle and
Yeah. So for me, it was like, well, then that's a block. And so I need to work around that block. And so I shouldn't never feel guilty about how much money I'm making, and that I should create a system that automates and systematizes that income, meaning the sales process, the conversion process that is independent of me. So all those things will keep happening. So once I hit $500,000 in profit, I don't just rest on my laurels. Everything continues to go with or without me. And so that was part of the scaling process. It was also like starting with yourself as far as understanding that that everything is your fault. For me, in the early days, every time something would happen in the field, I'd be like, one of the guys crashed a truck into a house. That idiot, or this bank wouldn't give me a loan, or this person did that. Or it was once I just said, what, everything is my fault. And I took like extreme ownership over my company, that I was completely freed. So it was like that person who crashed into a truck, he didn't have a chalk block on his truck. Why didn't he have one there? Why didn't I weld a chain on there and put it there for him? This other guy who's causing trouble every day and pissing me off, I hired that person. So it's my responsibility to get rid of him and get him out of my company. That bank that's not giving me a loan has a very clear framework of what they take. What am I doing wrong that's not fitting me in the framework for a loan? And so it was like that ownership was incredibly empowering. And once you take the ownership, then you start taking the steps forward.
I remember from the book, there was one good example which really resonated with me and made it clear like because I think when you talk about systems, it's a little bit abstract, but it can be, you just have to break it down. It's basically just a 5-step process, right? So there was one thing, your trucks always came off from the construction site with some dirt on the wheels, right? And that was on the streets, and then you get fines or so. So you created a process with kind of like 2 gateways. Truck pulls in, gets checked if it's clean, if the tires are clean and all that. If it's not clean, you have to do this and clean it and this and that and that. Like a very easy process. And also sending a photo, right, to the foreman or so. And it's basically just like the 5-step thing, right?
Yeah. So these are all just little, and I have systems for absolutely everything. Everything within my company operates as a system. Systems and feedback loops are what works throughout my company, meaning that nothing gets missed because everything goes through a process. Meaning you don't ever just say, you hire a person and then you just say, make sure that all my customers are happy. Like that doesn't work. You don't just hire someone and tell them to make sure your customers are happy. You create feedback loops and systems that ensure every single customer is happy, and the ones that aren't go through a whole separate process to make sure we get them there and that it never happens again.
How do you make sure this actually happens? Because I feel I worked a lot in my company on the video production side and agency side on these standard operating procedures or like the processes in general, but enforcing them, that's where I have a really hard time. And I mean, let's say we have the office here and super simple task, right? Watering the plants and taking care of the trash or whatever, right? But you have to have somebody who is responsible for checking that and doing that. And I don't want to be the person who's always checking in on if everything's done. How do you make sure that that's done? So
everything boils down to a metric, and so whatever your metric is at the end. So I love numbers, particularly for trash and stuff like this. I mean, you just hire a janitor, but I'd be more concerned with, like, let's say customer satisfaction. And so if the way you want your customers to make sure that they have been followed from the beginning of the process to the end of the process and that they've been satisfied is like for me, I'll use the star rating. My star rating, I look at it a weekly basis. If for whatever reason that star rating drops below my threshold, let's say a 4.8, I dial into it and I go, okay, it's below 4.8. I go back to one of my people in my office and say, hey, let me know why this dropped below 4.8 and get back to me. They go and they say, oh, it was Joe. He had 2 customers that were really unhappy. Dig into those 2 customers, find out whether it was just an oddball fluke that the customers were bad, or if Joe is doing something where he's not communicating things correctly. And then they report back to me.
Are you the person who's always enforcing everything?
No, I'm the person who looks at the metrics. So every morning I look at a set of metrics for my company, and it breaks down all the things that I find.
Is it just a Google Sheets dashboard, or
I have an email that I've structured to automatically come to me that has a bunch of different ones. So, like, for example, maybe I'll have my conversion rate. Let's look at a conversion rate. Conversion rate, normally we're sitting at like a 5.5%. So suddenly I look at my conversion rate and it's 3%. And I go, well, that's not right. Something must be wrong. So is there something wrong, like functionally on my website, or do we get a bunch of traffic? So I just go back to my office manager. I go, this number's out of whack. Let me know what it is. I give it to them. They go look at it. They come back to me. They say, it's a 3% because we got featured in this article where it drove us a lot of traffic, but it was non-relevant traffic. Therefore, we had more visitors, which dropped our conversion rate. That was the reason. I go, okay, cool. Thanks. That's all I need to know. Or the other way was, well, it looked like there were some cart issues where the cart wasn't functioning properly. So we got in touch with Shopify, and Shopify has now fixed the problem, and we're better now. And so you catch the problem very early on. And so if you have something like for office cleanliness, it might be that every day you have a box of white gloves. Your person comes in every morning. The first thing they do is put on a white glove. They run it over this table, that table, and the wall. And then they look at it, and if it has dirt on it, somebody didn't do the job. I don't know what yours is, but some sort of a metric that just is done on a regular basis that has, boils down to a single action that tells you something is wrong, so you can have somebody in your office dig into it and fix it.
That's cool. How would you start doing that? I mean, that's pretty advanced, having this automated report and all that. But for beginners or somebody who would just listen to that and think like, okay, that's smart. How would you start putting in these processes? Is there anything where you have the biggest leverage in your company? How do you identify that? Do you do that in, I don't know, a project management tool? What would you say is this actually goes 2 prongs. So one is how do you first you're learning how to step away from your company. So you write down every responsibility. Just spend, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks of just documenting everything that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. What are you doing? I came to work, I sat down, I caught up on emails, I talked to my team about here's the things that need to get accomplished. I went through and I went to our books and I updated our books. And so now you're going to make these all into jobs, and then you're going to create systems around each of those jobs to make your life easier. Once you have bulletproof systems, then you're going to put people in place
and they'll run those systems. And each one of those systems has to come down to a single metric. So for example, like give me a problem that you have, like something that you're dealing with constantly that you would like to fix.
I have a lot of problems. No, I mean let's say for the US company, it's still in build mode. So we I just need like 1-2 more years to get like the product market fit, to get everything ready, right, and hire more people. But for in general, I would say is plannable. Yeah, like good lead intake.
Good lead intake for customers.
Like more leads in general. I'd say is definitely a thing. Especially that's as I mean we're growing and we grew we doubled year over year, which is pretty fine and which was pretty cool. But I mean the bottleneck is most of the time like good qualified leads.
Good qualified leads for customers is okay. So this is more of a marketing issue than a systems and operations issue. So that takes experimentation. So this is like you need to go through, test out all of the different marketing channels, and then split test the hell out of them to get as many for that biggest bang for your buck that comes through. Yeah. So I would be more concerned with like what is my customer acquisition cost or something like that, and say, well, our customer acquisition cost is maybe it's $500 for a customer. Like that's your number. And so now we're going to go, okay, it's $500 per number. Our customer lifetime value is $1,000. So we know that at that number, we can amplify that and make, double our money back, make $2 for every dollar that we spend. And so how are we going to get the customer acquisition cost down? So maybe that's where you start with, and you say, okay, well, we found that, this channel is $300, but this channel we're paying $700, and the $700 channel, maybe that one needs to be optimized, and the $300 channel, maybe we should throw more cash flow into that until we figure this one out and just work on that single number. I don't know what your number is, but you have to find a number to dig into to fix every problem, because you can't fix a problem unless you can quantify it. And when you have a number, it's way easier to have conversations with your team, because you're not just like hand waving saying, hey, our customer service is terrible. Like people are complaining all the time. You go, hey, I noticed this week our star rating review went from a 4.0 to a 4.65. Can we look into it and figure out what it is that brought the customer service level? These are really easy conversations to have because they're data driven. Nobody likes the hand waver, the person that just walks into a room and says, we got these problems, go fix them, because you are the boss. You own the company. It's your job to fix them. So you are the one to create the system, to put them into good. So you can hire the most amazing people in the world, and if you put them in shitty systems, they're going to fail. You can hire the shittiest people in the world, and if you put them in excellent systems, your business will still survive. Okay. So first part of the book was start with you, right? Second is, and we already touched base a little bit on that, it's a scale through people. Can you give us a little bit of insight on that? I mean, would you say you're always scaling, or the only option to scale is with people, or you need people, or what's your perspective on that? Well, so like I just said, you want to hire exceptional people and put them in exceptional systems. So get your systems dialed in first, then get your people. And then don't do stupid things. People go and they hire people based off of like a resume. Like you don't hire someone off of a resume, you hire someone off of rapport. Like you hire someone who's going to be a good fit with your team. It's amazing that someone would be like, well, yeah, I hired this guy because he was working for one of my competitors and he was their top salesperson. And he came here and everybody hates him, but he's making good sales and now I'm stuck with him. No, you hire people that you like. Hire people. It's like, I think of my company like my baby. Like if it's my child, am I going to just hire somebody because they're, I don't know, because they're a great disciplinarian? No, I want to hire someone that I like, know, and that I trust, right? And so just hiring exceptional people and people who are really bought into your cause. And to me, it's always been all of my effort goes into hiring people because I'm terrible at firing people. And so when I take someone on, I take ownership over the fact that I provide a paycheck that supports them and their family. So I have terrible guilt for firing them. So I learned very early on to avoid the terrible guilt of firing people is to hire only exceptional people so I don't put myself in that position.
That's pretty smart. Yeah. The second, I think next level tactics also, I were going to skip that. That was part 3. But what I really loved is part life on the side. In general, basically what you do is designing the life you want, right? And it's like, okay, I want to spend X amount of work per month, per week, per whatever, and design everything around that. And I think that was pretty cool. And also having that exit and stuff in mind, like, can you give us some insights on that? And what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean, I early days, I'd say as an entrepreneur, I didn't pay myself, and that was a big mistake. I think I constantly put all the money right back into the company, and I learned that was a problem. And eventually my company got big enough, and I learned to start taking money out, and then I started investing it, and then not spending above my means. Even today, when I bought my last house, I put 60% down on the house. I buy all my cars, my car, my RV, my motorcycles, everything for cash. I don't like to have any monthly expenses. And a lot of people will say, oh, that's just crazy. You should finance stuff so you have more money to grow your business. It's just not for me what I'm interested in. I'm interested in having a 40-year runway, which is probably what I have right now. I could stop working and I could probably never work again, but I really enjoy working. And I save probably 60% of what I make at least. And I just like my lifestyle like that. Some other people like to be highly leveraged, and those are the people that get really hurt in the downturn of the economy. Mm-hmm. When the economy turns down for me, I can just go on vacation a little bit more because I got more free time. I don't worry about it.
That's good.
Yeah.
But you had a couple of companies already?
Yeah.
And are you always building a company with exit in mind, like selling the company?
No, never. No, I just build companies that serve me now. Meaning, I have sort of a manifesto that I go by as far as what I'm willing to do and not willing to do, and that I want to be able to run my business remotely from anywhere in the world, and I want to be able to just check in. I don't want to put more than if I want to work 5 minutes in a week, I can work 5 minutes that week. If I want to work 50 hours in a week, I can work 50 hours. But those 50 hours are all going to be spent doing the 10x activities. And so eventually the companies just get to a certain point where every one of my companies has had rapid growth in the beginning, meaning 200%, 300%, 400% a year. And then as they mature, it goes 40%, 30%, 20%. And eventually at some point, sometimes it's, it gets to a point where you're like, okay, well, this isn't exciting for me anymore. I love the big explosive growth. I'm probably not a CEO, the guy who's going to just grow it at the 10 or 20% a year. And to me, it's just not exciting anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I've ended up selling them. But like both of my companies I run right now, I could run them forever. But if enough money comes along, I'll sell them.
Nice. Let's talk a little bit about the position of CEO, how you see it. You mentioned earlier that it's ideally you don't have any tasks or any responsibilities, and you can just do what drives the business 10x, right? How do you structure your companies? Do you have a good COO or different people who are taking care of all the stuff? Because there's a lot of problems coming up every single day, right? And I think I'm speaking for a lot of people from our audience. They have their businesses, they run their companies, but they are the person that always takes care of the fires everywhere in the company and the problem solvers and that. How did you change from that position to, hey, I can do whatever I want?
Well, I don't put out any fires in my business. I have really exceptional people, and we have layers that go from like our service providers up to our customer service team to our higher level of customer service. Things have to get pretty bad before it comes to me, and I've done this by setting up amazing systems. I've done it by hiring amazing people. If I feel like I have a job, meaning if I feel like I got to get up and I have to go run payroll, or I have to get up and I have to go do my books, or I have to, have meetings with these marketing people. I go, okay, well, these are things, this is a really, really poor use of my time. And if I look at my time, I say my time is worth $1,000 an hour. Mm-hmm. I could hire someone for $12 an hour to sit in on a marketing meeting or for $60,000 a year or $100,000 a year. And so it's really poor use of my time. And so I will create a system around that. Matter of fact, I just hired a new marketing manager, and I had a bunch of disparate systems of different marketing companies that were running different aspects of my company. And so I started creating systems for them, and then hired a marketing manager to put them in the middle of that. And now we have, we're getting, now she is sort of managing those people that I was, but it took me 4 months to sort of put all those places in piece or together. You have to be really intentional about the way you grow your business. You also, by the way, you have to have profits. Mm-hmm. You have to run a business that makes money to hire the right people. And so there's, it's funny, this argument about like the hustle and the anti-hustle culture of like, the hustle culture is like, go, 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 go. And the anti-hustle is like, no, I'm just want to like cash flow business, do whatever. I'm saying there's both. So there's a point in the beginning where you have to hustle. My whole point of the book was that if you're not careful, that same hustle that makes you successful becomes a trap. It will hold your business back from growing. And so in the early days, when you don't have the finances to hire an operations manager, you don't have the finance to hire a CMO, then you do need to hustle. But you need to be sure that you're setting up systems around yourself to make your life easier so that you could take anybody and put them in that seat, and they'll be able to still run the business. So what you don't want to do is just be there, run around with like a chicken with your head cut off, running like just everything is based off of memory or whatever, because then you're irreplaceable. Like you want to make it so an 8-year-old could run it, and then take a smart person and put it in that spot, and then they'll do better than you will, because they're focused just on marketing, they're focused just on operations, they're focused just on finance.
So how do you write down all these processes and systems?
Well, it depends on the system. I mean,
do you have a knowledge base for that, or any tool you can recommend? Or?
Well, so it's funny, in the hustle trap, I'm very clear that I don't make any recommendations of tools whatsoever, because there's 10,000 different.
What do you use?
Well, for me, I'll use for, let's say, first order is like something like Shopify. So I don't want to do a bunch of custom development. I know that I have a huge app ecosystem. So it means that without hiring developers, I can accomplish most of the stuff that I want to accomplish. And then I use for, I have like a dispatch software that I've built through Google. I have,
but where's the documentation of these systems?
So they're all documented within themselves. So you have, so we have like a central database of like our Google Drive where each person, so the CMO knows where all the marketing stuff is. The CFO knows where all the finance stuff is. The COO knows sort of how everybody ties together. And so each of those positions, so it's not a single source. And
you have a very detailed job description for everyone with all the tasks they have to do?
Yeah, fairly detailed. Yeah.
Okay. Wild. That's cool. I'd love to dig deeper into that. That's great.
Yeah. I like to, I mean, I'm obsessed with efficiency. And because of it, like, this is fun. Like, even when I drive places, I'm obsessed with being efficient in how I get from point A to point B. I'm obsessed with like being efficient at the house, and I'm obsessed. I mean, to me, everything is about being efficient, to a point where I often find myself extremely bored. So I spend a lot of time walking. So.
Yeah. And I mean, fast forward, you had this crazy accident like 15, 16 years ago, right? And you're running again. You're training for a marathon. I see your results on Strava all the time. You're quicker than me. So
no, I'm not quicker than you, Benny.
But you're definitely keeping up.
Yeah. No, I did. I ran a marathon last month just out of curiosity. I didn't do any training, and I wanted to see whether or not I could do one. And so I went and I ran it, and I didn't do fast. I did like 5 hours and 17 minutes. But now I am training, or at least trying to do a couple runs a week to see if I can do it for time. And you're going to come with me, right? In March?
I'm down. I'm down.
All right. Yeah.
You heard it first here. LA Marathon, we're down.
LA Marathon, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Guys, that was a really inspiring episode for me, and I hope you got as much value as I got. Ryan, before we close it up, I would love to get a bit of like life advice or so from you. We talked a lot about like how you run that business and all that, but as you have a lot of life experience, and there are a lot of young people out there who are listening to us or watching us on YouTube. By the way, check out our episodes on YouTube, New Trend Society. Most of the episodes are also now with video, which is amazing. So you not only can listen to our beautiful voices, you can also see our even more beautiful faces. And so definitely check it out. But what I wanted to say is there's a lot of young folks out there that maybe haven't found their passion or their direction or so. What is your advice to the younger generation, or like to younger people?
I feel like people, particularly the younger generation, they're extremely busy, and they think that busyness is the thing that leads them to success, and they don't spend enough time really thinking and digesting. And so it's like reading books and listening to the podcast, and then going and meeting with people, and it's like action, action, action. So it's like ingestion, but never digestion. And so taking the time to digest everything. So if you read a book, take an equal amount of time to walk and think about that book. Read a chapter, walk a couple miles, think about what you just read and how you can apply it to your life. Spend time with your own mind. So that all of those aha moments, they're all like right brain moments that come to you. Like the reading and the logic and everything it'll help you maybe fix your immediate problems, but the big term goals, you have to create space for yourself. And so if you're not at least spending an hour a day with your own thoughts, I think that's like the lowest hanging fruit. That's
good. I'm gonna start doing that even more. I mean, I get a lot of good thoughts when I go for a run.
Yep.
Yeah, so stop. Maybe I sometimes listen to music or so. I don't listen to too many podcasts now during running. And usually if I'm coming back, I like the aha moment, and there's just the solution of all the problems, right?
No great business idea has ever been discovered while you were pounding away on your computer replying to Gmail. Mm-hmm. It happens when you're on a run, when you're on a walk, when you're taking a shower, when you're doing something where you're detached from everything. Mm-hmm. That's where the aha moments. And I feel like a lot of people just don't create space for that. And so I hope if there was one thing I would say is just to create more space.
Great. All right. Amazing. Guys, please check out the book, The Hustle Trap. I loved it. I'm gonna finishing it up pretty soon. But there were so many valuable takeaways, and I hope you had the same enlightenment than I had. And Ryan, thanks for being on the pod.
Thanks for having me.
If you want to check out more from Ryan, just connect with you on LinkedIn. If you want to work in your company or whatever, you're probably hiring, right? You always look for good people?
Yeah, of course. Check me out. Ryan Crownholm on all social handles. Ryan Crownholm, LinkedIn, Instagram.
Amazing.
I'm out there.
Ryan, thanks for your time. And guys, see you next week. Every Wednesday, new episode of New Trend Society podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next week.
Right.